Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Our first story today comes to us from Arnold Dorothea. If you don't like it, leave. Don't mind if I do. Let's jump right in. I want to preface this by saying that this was my dad's story. I wanted to share it to honor him since it's Father's Day and I just got off the phone with him. He's so much happier now. My dad has been a mechanic for almost 30 years. We immigrated to the US 10 years ago, but in my home country, he was both a mechanic and a workshop manager since he studied engineering in college. When we moved to the US, he chose to move all of us, which meant he had to work very long hours, 10 to 13 hours, 6 to 7 days a week, as a mechanic to make ends meet. He could have maybe gone back to school and gotten a better job, but he wanted all of us to be together. Anyway, my dad had been at this job, I won't name which one, but for a big shot car company as a mechanic for years. He had another job before this, but had to relocate after we moved into an actual house. Yay! He was really their star employee. He overworked himself to the point of fainting at work. And all he did was ask his coworker to bring him water and continued working. He never took lunch breaks, he would eat food quickly in 10 minutes and would go back to finishing tickets. None of this is healthy, and I'm not glorifying it at all. I wish he didn't have to do all of that to make ends meet. After almost 7 years at the company and never having gotten a raise, my dad never asked. He didn't even know he was allowed to. Him working himself essentially to death and doing the work of 3 people as one person, he was told he would get $18 an hour. He was making $15 an hour. This would have been huge for our family, and we would have gotten to refinance the house and lower our mortgage. He worked overtime a lot, so he was excited to make more. Then a mistake happened. Not even my dad's fault. Another worker forgot to put oil in the engine before letting the customer drive off. Obviously, the car broke down and it fell back on the company to reimburse the customer. They decided that they would take it out of the workers' paychecks because everyone should have been paying attention. They told my dad they were canceling his bonus. He finally decided to stand up for himself and said that's not fair. They said if he wishes to instead, he could pay for a portion of the engine's cost himself if he wants to keep the bonus. He declined, which was met with, just leave if you don't like it. They assumed that would be an empty threat, because not only was this during the height of lockdown, but obviously no man working those grueling hours would be able to afford to just leave. But that's exactly what he did. He simply said, okay, and walked out. They tried saying something, but he told me he paid them no mind and drove to the nearest gas station. He then called his old company's manager. This manager was very kind to him. I remember when I was younger, I even went to his kid's birthday party, and that was the first birthday party I had ever gone to. I didn't have any friends in the beginning due to my accent and kids being mean. Apparently, his old manager, who had moved to California himself, then came back to our home state earlier that year, had offered my dad a job when he moved back. This was at another big name car company, but I won't name which one. My dad had initially told him that he couldn't just leave his workplace, since he had been there for years and felt responsible for the company. I honestly don't understand this company loyalty stuff, especially if they pay you like crap, but maybe I'm too young to understand that. Anyway, he explained the situation and asked if the position was still available. My dad got started at his new job at $20 an hour, with a raise based on his performance and a sign-on bonus. Literally just had to do a drug test, no interview, no nothing, and got hired on the spot. After 3 months, he got bumped to $25 an hour. I always worried about him overworking, but he kept reassuring me that it's a lot less on him even though he still works 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. He tells me a lot of times he's making house calls, so he gets to drive on company time, which relaxes him, and that the workload is a lot less for a lot more. I hope he's telling the truth for his own sake, but he does sound happier. They've even let him borrow the company's cars during winter while the roads are icy because my dad has this beat up 99 Toyota Camry that creaks and rumbles while running. And his manager said he doesn't want my dad risking his safety to drive to work. He told me today that they're making him do managerial duties now too. It's what he used to do before we moved to the US, so it's really easy to him. And that as compensation, they're giving him 25% more what he was getting before. I'm so happy for him and very proud of him. I'm glad he's not overworking himself and left behind that crappy company. They've tried reaching out to him to match what the new job was giving him 4 times, but he's declined every time. They even said they'll give him a sign-on bonus. Obviously, he declined. F around and find out, I guess. If you're really going to threaten your most hardworking employee with the "if you don't like it, leave it," then you should be ready to accept the consequences. No, you don't deserve any 2 weeks notice. No, you don't deserve any more of his labor. My dad deserves everything though, and I just want to share his story because I love him so much and am so proud of him. Wow, it's absolutely illegal to take any damages from a worker's check, even if that damage was caused by that actual worker. I mean, you can fire them, but you can't charge them for the damage done. That's why you have insurance. It's the exact same thing if you work in a gas station where somebody drives off without paying, or in a retail store and somebody steals something while on your shift. You just legally cannot have it deducted from your pay, and if you have, you need to talk to somebody about it. OP, there's a lot of people in the comments for this story that are really proud of your dad for what he did. I know it's a couple days late, but I hope you can pass on a happy Father's Day from the whole KCC community. Do me a quick favor and take a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're actually not subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. This next story comes to us from Ultra Superman 1001. Stop resetting my password. Let's jump right in. I'm in a senior role at a service desk, and like everywhere else, if we see a ticket come in that has already been done or is a duplicate request, we just cancel the tickets and move on with our day. Well, we have this one user who is a vice president, and they are the type of person who thinks the world revolves around them. So they would be the person to send in a ticket, then 5 minutes later send another ticket, and so on until there's like a dozen tickets in the system. Well, a few weeks ago, we introduced a new password policy, 18 characters, etc., with an additional policy that makes you change your password after a reset, and you can't use a password you used before. And this was a big change, considering our previous policy was no requirements. Most users figured it out pretty good, and even the VP. Now, this is where the malicious compliance comes in. With that new password policy, it was also introduced that all tickets must be actioned before resolving them, and you can guess who brought this change in. So the VP went on vacation for a bit, then came back and forgot their password, and like normal, they would send in a dozen or more tickets. Now, in the 5 minutes or so between their tickets, we would get 1 to 5 other tickets come in, and it takes about 10 minutes to go through those. So my team and I went through every ticket like we are told to do, and we were counting the number of times we reset the VP password, because we knew this was going to come back on us. So lo and behold, in the span of about an hour, we reset their password 11 times. This is when our manager comes in and says, "I just got an email from the VP and they say you keep resetting their password." My manager is a good guy, and I remind him of the new ticket policy. He chuckles and heads back to his office, and he forwards us an email with the subject, "Stop resetting my password." In the email, it says they had to change their password 12 times, and they are running out of passwords they can think of, and to stop resetting their password. I reply all to the email and say, due to a new policy of tickets where we have to action each one before resolving it, we had to reset your password a number of times. No less than an hour later, our department gets an email from the president that says, "We have reviewed one of your new ticket policies and believe this to not be the best use of your time, so we're going to ask you to recant this policy." Needless to say, we stopped the policy because it was dumb from the start, and surprisingly, the VP actually started sending fewer and fewer tickets. 18 characters in a password. I'm still hung up on that part of the story because how the heck would you remember 18 characters in a password? Especially when you can't use previous passwords or derivatives thereof. I'm willing to bet if you walked around OP's office, you'd find at least a couple of sticky notes, maybe a couple of notebooks that have these passwords written down on them, sitting out in the open on the people's desk while they're not there. Talk about great security. Another thing that kind of made me go on this one was that an admin was actually sending in tickets to get something done. From my experience in tech support, that's usually an angry phone call from that admin saying it needs to be done now. This next story comes to us from Frank Sarno. Customer won't pay, management won't help. Let's jump right in. This is sort of malicious compliance, but was really just me doing my job. In the 90s, I used to work for a delivery company. For some customers, we provided a PC and software to print out labels and upload package information by modem. The contract required that the customer provide a phone line and uploaded the manifest daily so that they could be billed. One customer kept on unplugging or disabling the modem. This meant that every day dozens of his packages would be picked up and delivered over the next 2 days, but because the modem was disconnected, he wasn't getting billed. A trouble ticket was sent to me and I went for a site visit to diagnose the issue. The customer was nice at first and said there was nothing wrong. But as soon as I reconnected the modem and started the upload, in the 90s, so there was a screeching of the modem, he immediately got angry and started cursing me out and telling me that I was rude and disrupting his business. I left. He called his sales rep and made up a bunch of lies about me being combative. The sales rep was cowardly and didn't want to upset this customer, so did nothing. He's supposed to speak with the customer to remind of the contract requirements. A week later, the ticket again hits my queue. I go out there. The customer is still pretty rude, but I tell him that I have to do the maintenance. He informs that he has to use the phone line right then for an emergency. Contractually, the line had to be dedicated to the shipping computer. He tells me to leave. I do. This goes on for almost 3 months with me getting the ticket, customer having some excuse why I can't use the modem, then telling me to leave. I have to visit the customer each time I get the ticket in my queue. The inevitable ticket comes in. Okay, no problem. While he's watching me like a hawk, I go to a secondary process and download the manifest to a floppy. We almost never do this, so the customer was unfamiliar with this other method. I'm super friendly, don't ever connect the modem, and go about the routine cleanup. I leave. An hour later, I upload the manifest from my workstation to billing. 2 days later, the sales guy is really worried. What happened? I uploaded the customer manifest. It's in the procedure manual for what to do when the modem is unavailable. Because of the huge delinquency, several months, close to $15,000, the customer went to collections. The sales guy was reprimanded. The customer later went out of business, though this was unlikely caused solely by this event. I like to think it contributed. I'm sitting back here kinda going over this story, and I'm really surprised that there wasn't a failsafe built into the system. Like, if it wasn't able to upload the manifest after a certain number of days, that it wouldn't allow them to generate any more shipments. I worked for a store for a while that had a postage machine in it, but before you could use the machine, there had to be a balance available on it, so you actually had to pay it in advance. I guess that's not how it worked for OP in this case, but it probably should have. This next story comes to us from Brother P. I have to pay for that 10-cent personal call charge? Done. Let's jump right in. Back in the days before unlimited mobile phone calling plans and long distance, I had a company paid flip phone. There were all kinds of fussy rules attached to using it. No texting, even though texting was free. No long distance calls, with one exception as I'll explain below. No special ringtones, and no using the camera. Like I said, fussy rules. The one exception to the no long distance calls rule was for travel. In my job, I rarely would have to travel to a different calling area, called roaming, but if I did, I was permitted one long distance call per day to call home. That's it. So, the day came when I had to travel and stay overnight in a hotel for work. When I arrived at the hotel, I called my wife to let her know I arrived and spent a couple of minutes talking to my kids. Got some supper, did some work in front of the TV in the hotel room, and went to bed. The next day, while at the conference I was attending, I got a call from my home office. As I was in a large hotel, the call dropped, so I had to call back. Didn't think anything of it. Went back to my session and enjoyed the speaker. Later, after I got back to the hotel, I called home to say goodnight to the kids. I got the answering machine and left a message. Didn't think anything of that either. The next day, I returned and went on with my life. At the end of the month, I got a call from finance. Brother P, it's finance supervisor. I'm just reviewing your latest cell phone bill and it shows an unauthorized long distance call. Really? What was the date? April 3rd, you made a call to my office number at 9:20 a.m., then another one to my home number at 6:15 p.m. Oh, yeah, that's when I was at the conference. The first call was to me from the office, but I got cut off and had to call back. I called home from the hotel later. So, how would you like to reimburse us for the call? I beg your pardon? That second call, you have to reimburse for the unauthorized long distance call. You have an expense claim from the conference in, so I can deduct it from that, or you can pay directly. How much are we talking about? 10 cents? 10 cents? 10 cents. Would you like that deducted from your expense claim? I thought I was being punked. Seriously, I sat in stunned silence for a few moments. No, you know what? I'll pay you directly, I said, and wished the supervisor a pleasant day. I opened my drawer where I had some spare change, took 2 nickels, taped them to a sheet of 8.5 by 11-inch paper, and wrote for cell phone charge and my name. I then took a company envelope, addressed it to the finance office in a different building walking distance away, folded the sheet of paper, and put it in the envelope. I put the envelope in the outgoing mail tray, the postage for which would be paid by the company. A few days later, I got a call from the comptroller herself, 3 pay grades above me, and usually wouldn't interact with someone on my level. Apparently, the supervisor complained about me. What's with the nickels? I explained the situation, told her the supervisor had insisted that I pay the 10-cent charge, and I complied. She laughed out loud. The paper, envelope, and postage had cost the company more than what they recovered. The following month, the finance department updated the cell phone policy. From then on, only long-distance charges in excess of $10 had to be reimbursed. So this cost OP 10 cents, and then it cost the company the postage, the envelope, and the paper. But they had much better flexibility with phone calls for everybody in that company going forward from that time. OP, that's a great return on your investment. Check out all 4 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.